Hello there and welcome. Hello there. Welcome. So now that we went through the outline, let's go through level 1, week 1. Let me just share the screen very quickly. There we go. Okay. Now I'll be in this corner. Okay. So week 1, like, the outline tells you, is a peek into how to conduct this, peek into counseling skills and the 5 Ps. So in the introduction, when you meet someone for the first time, what should we include? And my question to you is, why do you want to introduce yourself and the process? Now, these are questions that you can think about, like, why are we talking about your name? Why do we talk about who you are in this dynamic? As a counseling technician, what can you do? Why do we talk to them about what you can do, what you cannot do? What are the rights of the client? What option does the client have in terms of starting off the session? I know I'm saying client over here, but like I've mentioned before, I like to use the word help seeker. So these are the few things that you would be looking at, why it is important to read the rights of the client. Why is the age demographic important? And we get into counseling skills after that. So let me go back. So the introduction, why should we include that? Why do we need to bother with that? Well, it is a relationship, right? As much as the individual in this relationship that is most vulnerable is the help seeker that you're working with, because they do share a lot of intimate details of their life. They talk about things that are really difficult for them. They talk about things that are nice and wonderful, easy for them too. And you become a huge part of their life, even though it may be for a shorter period of time. Sometimes it could be longer, but essentially you're a confidant. They're literally trusting their life. They're putting their life in our hands, right? As much as it is a collaborative relationship. So since it is a relationship, there needs to be a little bit of give and take. But for you to build that rapport, you would want to talk to them about who you are. Like, okay, my name is Rushma. I am a counseling technician, which means that I am not allowed to do diagnosis. I do not write out treatment plans. I'm not going to be providing prescriptions. That's what it includes. If you are a counselor, or even if you're a psychologist, okay, you want to include those things so that they know whom they're connecting with, and they could, use their heuristics, or they could think about, like, okay, do I feel comfortable connecting with this person? Because I've had multiple occasions where once I've sent the informed consent out to help seekers, they see my name as Fatima Rushma or Rushma Mohammed Franzak, and there are multiple times that people didn't want to work with me because I had Muhammad in my name, and they were wary of it. They said, well, but I don't know, you're a Muslim, are you terrorist? Are you going to, be very domineering in the session? And that's okay, because that's the world that we're living in. There's so much information out there, and people start making sense of the world, and they just want to feel protected. They do not want to have to be afraid in a session or worry while they already have their worries of their life. They don't want to worry about the person that they've been so vulnerable with, and like, if their information is safe, if they're physically safe, if they're psychologically safe, am I going to abuse them? And that's okay. So it's useful so that they can make an informed decision about connecting with us. Okay, what can you do, what you cannot do? Very briefly, I've already told you about that. Give me a moment. Interruption in between, and I apologize for that. So introducing your name, you would want to try and give your authentic name. However, it depends on the service that you are working for, or if you're running your own private practice, how you want to manage it, that's really up to you. I, of course, give my authentic name, my real name. And as a counseling technician, yeah, there we go. What are the rights of a client? So this is very important at the initial stages. I often try to read out the rights of the client. I come from Sri Lanka, and very often the informed consent is not shared as a practice, but I try to do that because I would like to encourage the help seeker to recognize and for them to feel empowered in the fact that, you know, they can make decisions for their life, and the fact that, you know, hey, if your counselor, your psychologist is doing something that you're not comfortable with, that you have the right to share that with them and talk about it with them. You do not need to just stomach it, you know, and feel like, oh, okay, you know, they're trying to help me. First of all, it is a paid service. Even if you go to a government hospital, it is your taxes that are helping pay any clinician who's working there, and we are there to serve you and help you. Of course, we want to be respectful of each other. Just because it's a service also doesn't mean that, you know, we want the help seeker to be abusive towards us too. And also, you want to share with them the rights of the client. You want to talk to them about the confidentiality, the privacy, moments in which you are going to breach your contract with them, the informed consent, how you're doing your payments, how cancellation fees occur, how are you invoicing them? Is it hourly? Is it per session? If it is hourly, in what increments are you doing it? What kind of so all of these things they want to know. It also comes, why I put it down under rights is because they have the right to question you about, why am I being charged for this particular thing, or I booked this way, or I booked this long and this is when I canceled it. So technically I don't have a cancellation policy that should be practiced here. So these are the many things you want to talk about. So in my informed consent, what I do have, especially I want to just touch on breach of confidentiality, is if about harm, if there is self-harm, harm to self or harm to others, that you're required to breach this. But at the same time, I do have this element in which where we inform them that they get to choose whom they're going to share this information first with, like who is there in the immediate surrounding that they consider as support and somebody who can support them through this tough time. So you would want to encourage them to share it with them. And if it isn't shared within the stipulated amount of time, that you personally, as the clinician, as the counseling technician or the counselor, would need to intervene and inform somebody that this is happening. All right. And be prepared as a counseling technician or a counselor that your help seeker could get really angry with you, really mad at you for that. And that's okay, because we're not here to make friends or be afraid of doing this at the expense of their life. Right. What options does the client have in terms of starting a session? So usually what I like to do is I'd like to tell them that, hey, you know, how would you like to set about it? When they say they don't know, I would offer up a couple of suggestions like here, where I would say, would you prefer me to ask you a few questions to jog your memory and get you moving, get your wheels turning, not jog your memory, your wheels turning? Or, you know, would you like to start from wherever you want to? You know, like example, they're coming in, they just really want to talk about their problem, but we go like, okay, so how old are you? Can you give me the history of your family? Blah, blah, blah. That takes about the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes sometimes. And they're probably seated there thinking, I just want to talk about my problem. I really don't want to be giving you the history of my life right now. This crappy, shitty thing happened to me yesterday, and I just want to talk about it with someone. So I would often say, you know, you can start wherever you want, wherever you want. And as things progress, you would notice that sometimes they start with something, but they end up somewhere else. And the question is, so can they start talking about topics that are not related to what they're feeling challenged with? Answer, simple answer is yes, of course. It's catharsis, it's venting. Essentially, the session is like a punching bag. Or, you know, something where you could have your verbal diarrhea at that session, not feel judged and go away. And then either you come back, or maybe that one session was just enough to unload and you're done. Why is it important to read the rights of the client? I think we kind of like touched on that before, but I really want to add this in. The kind of environment we're aiming to set up for therapy or counseling is something that is empowering, something in which somebody comes in, feels validated, feels understood, feels like they could be autonomous in the session, why it's a collaborative relationship or partnership, I'd like to call it. You know, we're a team, we work together, and we want them to also recognize and understand that right here, you are the expert on your life. I may be an expert in behavior, or, you know, being able to look at, you know, problem solving and how to cultivate and develop self-esteem and all that. Yes, but the expert in your life is you. The help seeker is the expert, right? So we want them to connect with that, because oftentimes you will find individuals who come into therapy or counseling and they feel like they're useless, everybody else is right, everybody's living a better life than them, you know, and they always make the wrong decisions. But you're making the wrong decisions for your life based on what? How did you come to that conclusion? You might have made right decisions, but you didn't follow through because somewhere on the path somebody said something and you feel, ah, they're right, well, look at their life, they're living more fully than I am. Judging a book by its cover, right? So we read the rights of the client so that they know that they can take control of sessions at any point. They are free to guide sessions too. They're free to suggest to you that, hey, Rushma, I don't really feel like I want to do this, but I'm wondering for next session, can we talk about this, and the other? I read this article online and I want to know your thoughts on it. I'm wondering if it's going to help me. If it is, I would really like to give it a go. No problem. So that is the kind of environment we want to create. We're empowering them. Okay. Why is age important? So at this juncture, why I want to talk about why in the first session, oftentimes you try to get the age down. It helps twofold with diagnosis. Okay, because we want to also look at the developmental stage that somebody is at when they come and present with a problem, right? If it is a child, you know, let's say 7, 8 year old who's refusing to go to school, and I have noticed that I get a lot of school refusal between 6 to 9 years, sometimes 10 years old. And one of the things that I've noticed and I remind myself to talk about or, you know, think about is bullying, right? Could just be bullying. And then at the age of like 11 to 15, or 16, males and females, refusal to go to school sometimes tends to be related to puberty, right? So a woman, a girl child, a female has gone through puberty, and you know they are growing, so you know their reproductive system is changing. Obviously that's where you reach your puberty. Their hips widen, their breasts enlarge, and so all of these things happen and they feel very comfortable. They want to cover up, like, no, you know, everybody's looking at me. My friends are wondering why I'm so slutty, but what could they do? That is their development. That's just how they are. When it comes to guys, they're very conscious about the way their voice breaks, or they notice that they get hairy, and some of them don't even like it. So there are so many things. And then when you look at somebody, you know, when you're going towards 16 to 20, 21, you want to talk, you know, you want to explore all of these things, because I'm not saying that these are the only reasons why you would want to explore that. And there are different diagnoses that matter with age. Like if you're in a prodromal phase of, you know, schizophrenia or something, you might notice a prodromal phase. For girls tend to be around, you know, 12, 13, right? Or even males a bit older. So these are things why you want to look at it, because if they're presenting later on in life with some sort of psychiatric disorder or presenting with some other issue, you can think about like, oh, okay, what's going on? What's their age? What are the possibilities? So that you can rule those possibilities out too. And when you rule those possibilities out, you are not going to be setting an agenda for yourself and going, okay, this is the age, I need to explore this, and this. You want to give them space to explore and talk in any way they want. giving us an idea of behind the dialogue which can help connect. So this is also something that I think is very important to know what age they are at, because I've found it useful to use. If there was an experience that they had at a particular age, it's easier for me to connect with an experience that I had that may not be similar, but elicited similar emotions, right? And it helps me better to connect. So that's why I would say you would want to get your age down to. Are we expected to connect to almost any similar situation that elicited a similar emotion within the client? No, you don't have to have felt or experienced similar things with your help seeker in order to be able to be empathetic, right? No, you don't have to. Not at all. You do not have had to have the same experience at all. Okay. Empathy is about you being able to walk in their shoes, right, with their experience, and recognize that this is painful or this is really exciting. So that's what it's about. The ability to empathize is different. You don't necessarily need to have had the same experience. So there's also, on the other side, the third thing is that, it helps you with research. As in, you're not going to be focusing on the age because you want to grow your research or your database or anything. It's just for later on. When you look at the volume of individuals that you worked with, you'll notice that, oh, hey, I'm noticing this pattern with these women of this age or this economic strata too. And, all of these things, I've noticed this pattern. It's just noticing a pattern, but we're not talking about cause and effect. It just helps you inform how you're going to approach therapy for future. Like, oh, I noticed this, I remember that. Well, do I need to approach it in that way, or shall I approach it in a different way? Now, when we look into counseling skills, actively listening, what does it mean? Intentionally paying attention and focus to whom you are listening to or talking to. How does this differ in a group? That's the question for you. How would active listening differ in a group setting? Why are we intentionally paying full attention and focus? Because we want to ensure that we validate the client that we're working with, right? Because if you actively listen, you're going to be able to validate. You're going to be able to tell them that I recognize where you're coming from and your feelings are valid. You're going to be able to give them that opportunity where they don't need to feel like my feelings are irrelevant and I don't know why I'm feeling this way. You're going to be able to help them realize that it's okay to not be okay for whatever experience that they're in. Why do we want to validate? Question for you. We engage in active listening so that we would be able to validate. And how do we engage in active listening is somebody would be able to experience your active listening or making them feel heard when you engage in reflection, paraphrasing, or summarizing, right? But the question is, when you're doing this validation, are you required to agree with everything that your help seeker is telling you? The truth is, you don't have to agree to everything that they're telling you, but you would want to be accepting of everything that they're saying. You accept that this happened, you accept that this is what they're feeling. You may not agree with it, but you have to verbalize it. That's another question for you. Do I need to tell them, no, I don't agree with that? That's not right. Because I don't think a help seeker is here for you to share your life nuggets of wisdom, right? They're here to share their experience and feel heard. More often than not, that's what it is. Plus, if you choose to do advice giving therapy, we're less likely going to help them develop their emotional regulation skills, their coping skills, their problem solving skills, solution oriented thinking. So want to be cautious of that. What are the benefits of active listening for the core tech. Helps one to store the information in a meaningful manner, which enables recall for the future. So when you summarize, rephrase, paraphrase, and you reflect, right, you are making sense of what you understood and you're confirming your understanding with the help seeker. Once this has been confirmed, or they say, no, you're incorrect, that's not really what I meant, it is easier for you to connect with that node to recall in the next session. Oh yeah, this is what happened. Right, so your storage and retrieval, because it was stored in a meaningful way, it's easier for you to recollect. And also to have it in the back burner so we can help them work through what they're going through in the next session. We have a lot of creative ideas that will come up. So it makes them feel validated. So from perspective of a client, it makes them feel validated. Makes them feel that their story is important and that it matters. Peek into counseling skills still continued. Questioning, why is this a counseling skill? Why is questioning considered a counseling skill? Whether you're doing open-ended questions, close-ended questions, right? Now, I know that there are so many open-ended questions which say, can you tell me more? Right? That's technically a close-ended question because we put can over there, right? So this is just a yes or no answer, a very closed off response. So when I do training for questioning, there are individuals who say, would you like to share more? How, so they will put the would you, could you, can you, in a way by right of, I call it an open invitation with the closed-ended question, right? So an open way of sharing is created. And you know, the reason you put the can or would you like to is because you're letting them take control and choose what they want to say. But anyway, coming to open-ended questions, when can we use these questions? At any time you can use it wherever relevant, and we will be getting into it. I would try to upload a role play where you get to see this and you would ask open-ended questions. I mean, I use a lot of open-ended questions at the get-go, especially with someone who's willing to talk and share. So at the get-go, yes, asking them about open-ended questions. How did that happen? What took place? Why do you think so? Why is a tricky thing. It really depends on the tone and how you ask the why question, because why can be very confrontational and can come across as threatening. But these are the questions that, you know, invite an open response, right? Close-ended, when can you use these questions? You can also use this at any time when you're trying to confirm pieces of information. And I'd also like to talk about this. Very often I've noticed that open-ended questions and close-ended questions, there's this sort of, I suppose, stigma with the questions too, wherein like open-ended questions are really good, close-ended aren't. Well, it really depends on the purpose. If you're trying to explore and get their side of the story, open-ended questions are going to be more helpful and more prudent to use. But if you're trying to confirm pieces of information, if there's someone who doesn't want to talk and who prefers you asking yes and no questions, well, close-ended would be more helpful. So there's a different way of exploring, right? So it really depends. There is no one better than the other. Each of them are really good in their own right. Note taking, what are the factors that need to be taken into account or consideration when you're taking notes of the session? You want to definitely inform your help seeker. This goes back to the rights, that you would be taking down notes, and I hope that's okay, because I've had help seekers who do not want me to take down notes on a digital platform and store them on my computer or store it on the portal. They're like, it's okay if you take notes, but written. Would it be okay for them to look at your notes? Of course, they have the right to look at what you're writing about them. That's what I believe. So I have like entire transparency. So you would ask them if they're comfortable in which platform. Now, the takeaway work for week 1 was to explore and look at what are the 5Ps. What is the 5P formulation? And I shall catch you next week. Bye.